Encyclopedia of the Metro Universe, 2033. Mutants, Moscow, Metro. Intelligent rats, rats in which radiation exposure has awakened the rudiments of intelligence. One of them lives at Dynamo Station. Worms, creatures that live in the Zamoskvoretskaya line, north of Beloruskaya Station. Blind, navigate by vibration, can dig tunnels underground, very dangerous for unarmed people. Sherstuns, creatures that have degenerated from humans, living on the Filevskaya line and in government tunnels. Peaceful. Sirens, creatures that live in the Kalinin Confederation lines. They lure people with sound. Cats, creatures that live in the lines from Serpukovskaya to Borovitskaya, mutated from ordinary cats. Very dangerous. Cats also live in the east of Moscow, near the Izmailovskaya metro station. Slugs are creatures that live in the passages in the area of the Fourth Reich. Mods is a creature that is an antagonist of the novel The Wanderer. The book describes only the properties. It can penetrate the human skull through the nose or ears, destroy the brain, and replace it with itself. A person begins to carry out the mutant's commands under threat of death. The name comes from M033 in the classification of one doctor who lived with a tribe of creatures similar to Stranich and means mental object. Num 33. Zombies are rare. The living dead, described in the novel The Wanderer, where they look like living skeletons. Gorgons, described in The Wanderer in general, just living plants that stand in place and try to eat someone who passes by them, but learned to walk, also from the book The Wanderer. Arachnes, mutated spiders, are mentioned in passing in the novel The Wanderer and are fully described in the novel In the Interests of the Revolution. Jungle beasts, numerous monsters living in Izmailovsky Park, described in the novel Exit by Force. Many of them are artificially bred by people. St. Petersburg Metro. The conductor is a strange creature, at the sight of which people experience terrible fear, described in the book Road Signs. Pavlov's dogs are ordinary dogs, but they have a collective mind and reflexes, described in the book Road Signs. The water horse. It is also called a hippopotamus, mentioned in Road Signs, but not described. It is only known that it was seen at the Avtovo station. The black dog, Petersburg, mentioned and described in Road Signs. It is known that if its shadow falls on a person, he will die. The dimensions of the mutant are constantly changing. There is an assumption that it is not even a dog, but something else, unofficially called Vezem Sam Pays. Hungry soldier, a creature that lives in barracks, loves to eat. Stalkers, to deceive it, use bait, for example, rotten stew or cigarettes. Blockade, survivor, a mythical creature about which no one can really tell anything, since everyone who met it went to the next world. Balls, redistributed biological mass, pseudo-flesh, described in Road Signs, can take different forms but move by rolling. Balls from time to time require live protein. They integrate into themselves anything, a piece of meat, a cat, a person. Moscow Metro, groups, Polis. Polis is the cultural and spiritual capital of the metro. All metro inhabitants are interested in its safety. A peculiar caste society has formed here. The main castes are the keepers, Brahmins, who collect books and work with them, as well as the military, Kshatriyas, formed due to the evacuation of the nearby Russian State Library and the general staff to the metro. Representatives of these two castes form the Council of Polis, but the relations between them are tense, and power in Polis alternately passes to one of these castes. In addition to them, there are merchants and servants. Belonging to a caste is unchanged throughout life, but is not inherited, but is chosen by the person himself upon reaching 18 years of age. Located at 4 stations: Lenin Library, Arbatskaya, Alexandrovsky Sad, and Borovitskaya, the second richest community in the metro after the Hansa. Red Line. The Red Line is the former Sokolnicheskaya line, except for the Lenin Library and the section beyond Vorobyovi Gori station. The line is controlled by communists. The Red Line ends after Sportivnaya, although the line's management does not acknowledge this fact. The head of the Red Line is Comrade Moskvin. State control is in the hands of the Communist Party of the Moscow Metro, named after Comrade Lenin. The Commonwealth of Stations of the Circle Line, Hansa, is a Commonwealth of Stations of the Circle Line. It is named after the Hanseatic League, since all other metro lines pass through it, with the exception of Kakhovskaya, the richest of the lines. It lives mainly through trade and collecting duties from merchants wishing to cross the ring. Fourth Reich, the Fourth Reich. The Pushkinskaya, Chekhovskaya, and Tverskaya stations, where fascists have settled, working to clear the metro of all non-Russians. The Emerald City. The University, Emerald City, a semi-legendary community that supposedly survived the collapse of the metro bridge at the Vorobyovi Gori station and occupies the University, Prospect Vernadskogo, and Yugo-Zapadnaya stations. The evacuated professors, graduate students, and students of Moscow State University managed to block the tunnels and find a way to get to the surface, having created their own protective suits. According to unconfirmed rumors, their scouts sometimes appear in the big metro. All three stations are managed by a rector, and each station is headed by a dean who are elected. The VDNKA Commonwealth. The VDNK Commonwealth is a small community of three stations, VDNKH, Alexeyevskaya, and Rizskaya. The Commonwealth is formed during the action of the book. It is famous throughout the metro for producing tea from mushrooms. Farms and trading posts, dynamo, aeroport, Sokol stations, the largest livestock centers of the metro, the granary of the metro, supplying food to the Hansa, Reich, Red Line, and probably Polis. Also, Dynamo produces clothing such as jackets made of pigskin, etc. Arbat Confederation includes Kiev Radial and Smolenskaya Arbatsko-Pokrovskaya lines. It is populated mainly by people of Caucasian origin, but stalkers, well-equipped participants in forays to the surface, have a strong influence at the stations of the Arbatsko-Pokrovskaya line. Bauman Alliance, Baumanskaya, Elektrozavodskaya, Semenovskaya stations, Industrial District, workshops, mechanical engineering, weapons manufacturing, Metro Forge, Voikovskoye, Commonwealth. A group of anarcho-communists, the capital is the Gulyai Pole station, that is Voikovskaya, renamed by them, described in sufficient detail in Sergei Antonov's book, Dark Tunnels, Pervomaiskaya Republic. The Pervomaiskaya Republic is located at two stations of the Arbatsko-Pokrovskaya line, Pervomaiskaya and Shkyolkovskaya. The republic is governed by former employees of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. It is isolated from the rest of the metro, but conducts secret trade with the rest of the metro. The overwhelming majority of residents of the two stations do not know about the habitability of the Big D metro, described in detail in Erpelev's book, Exit by Force. Commonwealth of mutant people, inhabited by people affected by radiation. The book, Dark Tunnels, describes only one station, Molodezhnaya, but it is highly likely that the neighboring stations before the radioactive Myakinino also belong to the same society as Molodezhnaya. Kalinin Confederation. The Kalinin Confederation is located at 6 stations of the former Kalinin line, a peaceful workers' society. There is a bathhouse at Novogiryevo, where people from other stations of the group come to wash on certain bathing days. Perovo is the main industrial station of the Kalinin Confederation. Ilyich Square is the capital of this society. The rest of the stations are ordinary, residential. The sections to the Enthusiasts' Highway are dangerous. From the Perovo side, spontaneous flames appear, dragon's breath, and sirens sing towards Aviamotornaya. When you follow the sound, you fall into a hole and die. Described in Sergei Kuznetsov's novel Marble Paradise, Confederation of Pechatniki. The name is unofficial, but the author of the novel Marble Paradise, Sergei Kuznetsov, liked it. They make tea in Pechatniki. Kozhukovskaya is a working-class district where the punks who went to the Kalinin Confederation used to hang out until 2033. The rails in the tunnels to Dubrovka are destroyed, but they can't be restored. The workers are dying. Things are not so simple with the station itself. There is some kind of sick anomaly there. Non-metro settlements of Moscow and the Moscow region. Solnechny State Farm, a well-armed settlement, breeds sheep. Their clothes resemble Slavic gods, whom they possibly worship. New Babylon, a group of city dwellers. They accept any money as currency. They trade with the Red Line and the Pervomaiskaya Republic. They have their own president, a gladiator section, which is led by Mikhail Sergeyevich Lanusta, the main man of Cherkizon after the president, and old as time, gray as a harrier, cunning as a fox. He prepares special food and drink for the gladiators, into which he supposedly mixes special dope mushrooms, which make the gladiators forget everything and stay in Cherkizon. It is located on the small ring line from the Cherkizovskaya station to Partizanskaya, Izmailovsky Park, with a branch to the Metro Gorodok station. Possibly. It has its own hotel, Hotel L'Amour, not shown on the maps, first described in the book by A. Erpilev, Exit by Force, in alliance with the Red Line and the Pervomaiskaya Republic. Another name, under which it is indicated on the map, is New Babylon. The common name is Cherkizon, from Cherkizovskaya. Community. Colony. It was a fairly cultured colony. It was governed by a council of people of various professions. It traded with Moscow. But one fine day, almost all of its inhabitants died from mutated bumblebees. Only a few were saved. Valley and cave, somewhat feral tribes. They are in a state of sluggish war. The valley is led, or rather helped, by St. Petersburg resident Tikhon Ignatievich. The reason for the war is in the barrels of fuel found by one of the tribes. Whoever found it earlier, they never came to an agreement. Amazons. A village inhabited only by female warriors, except for one gay. They can defend themselves, but due to the lack of men it is difficult to continue the family line and run a household. They live on power transmission towers, where the background is lower than on the ground. For them, they are an illusion of the rear. Pygmies, a tribe of ugly savages with cannibalistic customs. They live in caves in the forest. Sun worshippers, Tsoi cult, a small settlement of true fans of Viktor Tsoi, whose main anthem was the song A Star Called the Sun, hence the second name of the cult. They do not like strangers. The ruler is Viktor Tsoi's son, Robert Boshetunmai, described in the book In the Interests of the Revolution. Uninhabited stations. Izmailovskaya Station, described in the book Exit by Force, although the assumption of its abandonment followed from the setting of Metro 2033. Izmailovskaya ground station located near the Izmailovo jungle. Near the station there is a surviving metro bridge, Izmailovskaya overpass, Partizanskaya station. According to the fan fiction prequel, Prehistory of Metro 2033, the station belonged to the Bauman Alliance. On the maps of the original Dilogy, it was marked as a Trotskyist base, a fact which is confirmed in the Interests of the Revolution. It is also mentioned there that due to an attack from the Red Line, the revolutionaries left the station. At Partizanskaya there is a named train, Aquarel. It is curious that the station is completely empty. not a single living soul. Sometimes a mutant named Hunter comes to the station. Planernaya Station. Abandoned station. Arachnes, giant mutated spiders, live on the surface. Shchukinskaya Station. Due to the massacre at Poletsayevskaya, Shchukinskaya was abandoned, probably out of fear. Inhabited stations. Ernesto Che Guevara Station. Until December 2033, the Podbelskogo Street Station, part of the Red Line, housed the Comrade Lavrenti Beria Correctional Labor Camp, or Berilag for short, after the sabotage of the 1st International Red Combat Brigade of the Moscow Metro, named after Comrade Ernesto Che Guevara, led by Anatoly Tomsky. The station was forcibly handed over to them and renamed, described in the novel In the Interests of the Revolution. Spartak Station, Pagans. Spartak, formerly Volokolamskaya, is a mothballed station on the Tagansko-Krasnopresnenskaya line of the Moscow Metro, partially built for opening on the Shchukinskaya, Planernaya section in 1975, but due to various circumstances, never opened. Spartak is an unlined and unlit platform located on the Shchukinskaya, Tushinskaya section, approximately 600 to 700 meters to the southeast of the latter. Trains usually pass by without slowing down. People came to Spartak and settled there. The ruling elite created their own religion, which is a mixture of Slavic paganism and the Aztec religion. They have almost no contact with their neighbors from Tushinskaya. Supreme Yuri tries to make sure that no one goes there, described in the novel Ghost Station by Anna Kalinkina. Tushinskaya Station, Free City of Tushino, a fairly liberal republic, a bit poor, under attack by watermen. The Free City of Tushino is ruled by Burgomaster Grigori. The station has its own printed media, described in Ghost Station by Anna Kalinkina. Skodnenskaya Station, an impoverished station. Before the Begovaya Poledzhaevskaya section was blown up, it had trade with Dynamo, VDNK, but then supplies became impossible, and Skodnenskaya began to slowly become poor. In 2033, it trades only with Tushinskaya, sells pigs. Like the previous ones, it is described in Ghost Station, Timiryazevskaya Station, one of the stations with a difficult fate. Several years after the cataclysm, Timiryazevskaya was attacked by huge rats, which destroyed its entire population, and only 5 people were saved. Years later, the station came to life again, but this time, its inhabitants turned out to be Satanists digging a hole to hell. The entire decoration of Timiryazevskaya consists of pentagrams, Latin spells written directly on the walls, a wooden Jesus Christ, and the hole itself. St. Petersburg Metro. Groups. Technologicheskaya, a technocratic city on a cross-platform hub, whose residents are also called Mazuts. Primorsky Alliance. The group consists of stations of varying levels of wealth. The poor Vasiliostrovskaya, the rich and arrogant Admiralteyskaya, the influential Gostiny Dvor Nevsky Prospect Hub, and Mayakovskaya, which was acquired during the war with the curb builders. Because of such differences, for example, the residents of Vasiliostrovskaya hate the Admiralty. For some time, Primorskaya was the border station, which gave the alliance its name. But then water from the Gulf of Finland came from a dead-end tunnel, and with it, stench, algae, and creatures. The station had to be abandoned. The book points to the allegedly built Admiralteyskaya of the Nevsko-Vasiliostrovskaya line. In fact, this station was moved from construction in 2012 to the period after 2020. Trade City, a poorly managed but relatively influential underground city, inhabited by traders, represented by the station Sadovaya, the most populated by them, Senaya Spaskaya, maintains neutrality does not extradite criminals to other stations. Vegan empire, inhabited by eco-fascists. Their main food is plants. They conduct various inhuman experiments related to people and plants. Medicine is relatively well established. This empire is characterized by a slave system, represented by the stations Ploshchad Alexandra Nevskogo, I and the Sekmun, Elizarovskaya, Lomonosovskaya, Proletarskaya, also the station Obukovo, which rebelled against Vegan. Metro Cemetery. Metro Cemetery is a forcedly created society, the population of which consists of mortises and the dead. In the dead end, behind International, there is a kind of crematorium. Non-metro settlements of the Tver, Leningrad regions, and St. Petersburg. Petersburg, village of elves, slightly mutated people whose families fled Tver in 2012. They were hippies and worshipped some professor and Scandinavian gods. Kolpino Caliphate. Here live tribes of people who still have some remnants of reason. Cohesion is a clear example of this. They occupy the territory from the Rybatskoye metro station, located on the surface, to Kolpino. Stalin's temple. Here, in the upper vestibule of the Narvskaya metro station, gathered adherents of probably the most unusual faith. Stalin and his brother Kaganovich. Let's not forget that they were atheist communists. Lays. Since the Holocaust, and at least until 2033 inclusive, a slightly crazy man named Fyodor Bakhmetyev lives in the third power unit of the Leningrad nuclear power plant, together with his adopted mutant son, the plant man Lays. Near their shelter, and they live right on the reactor, there is a cemetery without the dead. The filling of the coffins was eaten by lies. Bomb shelter at the Kronstadt marine plant, a place from which cannibals spread throughout the island. Some degenerated, while others created the false religion Exodus for the sake of continuing life, which was later revealed. Colony of the island of Moshchny. People lived on this island, as well as on the island of Mali. But somewhere in November 2033, a tragedy occurred. The islands were blown up. Only a small number of sailors who were at sea at the time were saved. Uninhabited stations. Avtovo Station. The station was sometimes inhabited by ordinary people, sometimes abandoned, sometimes inhabited again, but with rare vampire hunters, sometimes abandoned again. Leninsky Prospect Station. Avtovo and this station were built in an open way, which means they were at risk of radioactive contamination, as evidenced by the precise information about Avtovo being abandoned. Prospect Veteranov Station. Before the bandits arrived, the community that formed there thought about old equipment mined from the surface. Then almost everyone left for Moscow, although only 2 made it. Parnas Station. The station is a trap for people of art. It is surrounded by legends that dissipate after some time. In fact, it is an abandoned station, entangled in vines, on which sits the sinister devourer, Udelnaya Station. Abandoned, but people lived there for some time. Then something happened between them, and they left. Kupchino Station. A ground station, and therefore abandoned because of radiation. But not only that. There are godforsaken places nearby, animals, swamps. In general, there is no life. Nearby is a depot where they bring the soil obtained during the excavation of the Red Route. Primorskaya Station, an abandoned station. That is, it was once residential, quite important. It gave the name to an entire group. But due to its proximity to the Gulf of Finland, the waters of which, along with algae and creatures, came to Prima. The station had to be abandoned. Ligovsky Prospect and Dostoyevskaya stations. The abandonment of these stations can only be judged indirectly. They are squeezed between the trade city and the Vegan Empire, which organized raids on it. Accordingly, using their reckless power on such an unorganized line as Pravoberezhnaya, the Greens, probably slaughtered or enslaved the inhabitants of these two stations. It is also known from Into the Darkness about the relative safety of the Ligovsky Prospect, Alexander Nevsky Square 2 section. Stations from Zvenegorodskaya to Volkovskaya. Probably near the metro cemetery, located to the south, there is a kind of exclusion zone of 3 abandoned stations, and then they allocated stations for cemeteries. Funeral teams collected the dead and took them to certain places, where they stored, or what did they do with them there? Burned them, as Ivan heard. Mortis live in the south, on the Purple Line. Bukarestskaya, Mezdunarodnaya. These are all Mortis. According to rumors, the dead end to the unfinished Prospect Slavy station is completely filled with charred human remains. Source: Peter, Chapter 5. Krestovsky Ostrov Station. The abandonment of this station can be judged indirectly. According to the plot of Into the Darkness, it becomes known that Chkalovskaya is abandoned. But unlike Polyanka or Dmitrovskaya in Moscow, one station cannot simply be uninhabited, which means there is no life on Krestovsky Island. Inhabited stations. Vyborgskaya Station. A very peaceful station, even too peaceful. Like many stations of the St. Petersburg Metro, it is managed by a commandant. According to the travel signs, there is a transfer to the unfinished station of the Okhtinsko-Petrogradskaya, Ring Line, Samsonievskaya, Ploshchad Lenina Station, military medics. The station belongs to military medics who came here from the Military Medical Academy located nearby before the Holocaust. This permeates everything: the manner of communication, the smells, the discipline. In 2017 or 2018, the last Muscovite, before Alexander's group from Travel Signs, came here. Chernyshevskaya Station, a relatively poor station, inhabited by gypsies. Station Ploshchad Vostanya, Bordyurshchiki. Inhabited by Muscovites who escaped from the Moscow railway station, who were nicknamed Bordyurshchiki for their slightly different dialect of the Russian language. It came to be managed by the impudent Tatar, Major Akhmetsianov, Akhmet, who became the Tsar. Before the war with the Primorsky Alliance, the Kurbshchiki also owned Mayakovskaya, after which it went to the Alliance, and Vostania gained independence. It, like Lenin Square, and the largest transfer hub of the St. Petersburg Metro, together with Mayak, has central lighting. However, in travel signs it was reported that the Ploshchad Vostania Mayakovskaya Junction is a military town. Station Vladimirskaya, a fairly calm and peaceful station. Lighting is mainly from fires. Station Pushkinskaya. There is very little information about the station. It is known that a rat wolf has settled there. According to Into the Darkness, communication between Pushkinskaya and Vladimirskaya is impossible due to a collapsed tunnel. Baltiaskaya Station, MVD Metro. The station is occupied by former police officers. In the book they appear as cops, but in 2012 they will no longer be around, pretending to regulate the order in the metro. Narvskaya Station, Flyers. Inhabited by the so-called Flyers, as well as gypsies. The former emphasize the logic of their name in every possible way. They are poorly organized. The main one is a man named Pilot. Kirovsky Zavod Station, Kirov Brigade, a station controlled by the Kirov Brigade bandit group, with which the Flyers from Narvskaya are fighting. The Bolts do not give them access to the center. Prospect Prozveshchenia Station, Cult of the Blind. A devout colony of the blind lives at the station. Only here religion is in the sin of people who turn their faces to a nuclear explosion. The blind do not like the sighted, and if they find them, they blind or kill them. Ozerki Station. The station is occupied by Muslims. They are not as aggressive as you might think. They produce or buy meat and green tea. Pionerskaya Station, angels. The station is inhabited and sung by castrates, a colony consisting of men who were processed in early childhood by the first ruler of the entire St. Petersburg metro, Saddam the Bloody. Despite this, they are grateful to him and believe that he made them impartial. They have a beautiful voice and remarkable physical strength. Chernaya Rechka Station. The station is formally abandoned, but in fact gypsies live there, and an abandoned station with living people is definitely a transit station. Petrogradskaya Station. Dendrophiles. Dendrophiles sit at the station. They worship plants, the main one being the cactus queen of the night. The main one is the caretaker. Nearby is the unfinished Botanicheskaya station of the Okhtinsko-Petrogradskaya Circle Line. Gorkovskaya Station, New Venice. Gorkovskaya itself is abandoned. It was flooded, and people left. But not far. Into the nearby flooded tunnels. That's where New Venice was formed. Most likely, it was through Gorkovskaya that the residents of the neighboring sections were united. New Venice, like the real one, consists of islets and islands. It lives by catching mutated eels. Frunzenskaya Station. Rotters who stole children live near the station. In connection with this, there was a riot on Frunzenskaya. Moskovskie Vorota Station, an inhabited station, one of the less affluent in the St. Petersburg subway. Lighting is mainly provided by fires. Elektrosila Station. Employees of the Elektrosila plant, located above, were saved at the station. The plant workers established their own rules, in a good sense of the word, below, and live like that. There is a bar called Pentagon, named after the administrative building of the plant, which was named after the U.S. Command Center. All pressing issues are discussed in the bar. Park Pobedy Station, a poor station. Lighting is provided by fires. Trade is at a low level. Papa itself, as St. Petersburg residents call Park Pobedy, seems to have very poor decoration. Moskovskaya Station. In principle, the station is also poor, but not as much as Papa. At least market rails were laid here somehow. The station's leader was Nikanor, who died around November 2033. Zvezdnaya Station, Zvezdnaya Commune. The station is populated by communists, no, rather utopians, whose form of government is built on the foundations of Marxism-Leninism. Their exact location was not initially indicated, but it was assumed that they were in Kupchino. But this station, alas, is above ground, and most likely from the rumors in the metro, one could conclude that they were talking about Zvezdnaya, the neighboring station. In the book, To the Light, it is precisely indicated that this is where the Reds live. Desperate people. They, or rather mostly prisoners, are digging a tunnel called the Red Path into the darkness, towards Moscow. Several kilometers have been covered approximately by November 2033. Ulitsa Debenko Station, Vesyoli Posiolok, the place where all the dope is made, and it is made from mushrooms. The new name was given not only by the occupation, it was also the name of the district of the northern capital, after which they wanted to name the station Ulitsa Debenko at one time. Prospect Bolshevikov, Okkerville Station. Almost nothing is known about the station. Based on the quote from Peter, one could assume that it, Okkerville, is flooded by the river of the same name, but the phrase is constructed differently. Most likely, it was renamed by analogy with the neighboring station, Ulitsa Debenko, according to the districts in honor of which they wanted to rename the stations at one time. Ladozhskaya Station. There were rumors about the station that the military wanted to use a tank to destroy the hermetic gates, cutting off from the outside world, but they contradicted the capabilities of the combat vehicle. The main thing is that there are people on Ladozhskaya, Sportivnaya, and Chkalovskaya stations. Sportivnaya is a residential independent station. Chkalovskaya and Krestovsky Island were abandoned until about November 2033, when sailors from Babylon came to the former. Only Chkalovskia is reported for sure, but the habitability of the neighbors can be judged from the conversation. The sailors wanted to be closer to the center and the Gulf, and if Sportivnaya was abandoned, they would have settled there. Staraya Derevnya Station, Buddhists, inhabited by Buddhists. Their faith was modified given the catastrophe that happened, but they still have courage. Kiev Metro, stations. Akademgorodok Station, a residential station. At one time it had tank barrels, later stolen. Before that, they were used as a precaution. Zhytomyrska Station, New Christians. Adherents of Christianity, specially modernized for underground life, settled here. Sviatoshin Station, a peacefully living station, the only one with a New Year tree. It definitely lives off the Kim and Son franchise, at least, thanks to the existence of a farm. The station master was Matvey Alexievich. Nivki Station, Amazons. Amazons settled here. Girls for whom men are animals, an object of hatred. They have a peculiar caste system. Certain principles differ from the rest of the metro. Berestayskaya Station. Judging by the missing checkpoints, the station is a transit station, but not like in Moscow or St. Petersburg, where poor people settled in abandoned stations, or stations that can very easily become such, but with a bubbling spring of life. Here you can buy a lot of things, see anything, hear. Not only the cries of merchants, but also parrots, the favorites of the former empress. Despite the loose way of life, the guards here strictly fulfill their duties. The emperor is Boris. Shulyavskaya Station. There is only one real inhabitant, Ibolit. Before that, there was also the mutant Uncas. But then he left there. For everyone, this station looks different. Captured by mutants, a kindergarten for the especially gifted, an abode of sorrow, and so on. Polytechnic Institute Station, Metro Sich. True nationalists of Ukraine rule here. They speak exclusively their native Ukrainian language, dress in national clothes, and hate all non-Ukrainians, both Russians and representatives of the Negroid race, and others. They do not like women. They cultivate a culture like mutated corn. Hetman Bohdan Kriga rules the Polytechnic, Vokzalnaya Station, Krita. At Vokzalnaya, I mean Krita, as it became known, the bandits from the prison that rebelled shortly before the Third World War gathered. They are the ones who produce and flood the entire Sviatoshinsko-Brovarskaya line with drugs. The main boss here is Lenchik Cosmos, University Station, scientists, a place where they set a high goal to preserve the scientific knowledge of their ancestors. But no one needs this knowledge anymore, and their laws are somewhat strange. At night, anyone who leaves the place of residence becomes a potential object for experiments. Teatralnaya, Leninskaya Station. The communists seized power at the turn of 2032 and 2033. They renamed the station and renamed it to the same name it had before February 2nd, 1993, abolished private property, set ideological goals, and went to bring communism to the masses. Kreshchatik Station, Papuans. Since it is very hot at the station, and also because there is an unblocked exit of the line to the surface, almost nearby, from where radiation comes, contributing to degradation, Papuans settled here. Well, more precisely, ordinary Ukrainians, but who have not retained the smart look. They grow various mutated nutritious plants, which are called bananas, pineapples, and coconuts. They also worship and use toads as food, and smear their arrowheads with their mucus. Residents of other stations are not allowed to eat them, but if they do, they will remain on Kreshchatik until the end of their days. Arsenal Naya Station, one of the deepest stations in the world, is abandoned for mysterious reasons. For the same incomprehensible reason, the lights are blinking, which means they work, and a strange hum is heard. The walls and ceiling are painted with mysterious signs. All this puts such pressure on the psyche that it becomes almost impossible to pass Arsenal Naya. Dnepr Station. The station is inhabited by white, possibly this color only in winter, monkeys, that is, captured by mutants. The bridge to Hydro Park is destroyed, and there is no connection with the rest of the line. Yekaterinburg. Metro. Factions. Bolsheviks, cut off from the rest of the metro by Bajovskaya Station and the Shorsa Belt. They occupy two stations, Botanicheskaya and Chkalovskaya. The latter is a vassal of Botanica. Chkala's entire arsenal was confiscated, and weapons were issued only for sorties. According to the plot of the novel, Chkalovskaya unites with the bunker to its own detriment. As a result, both stations were captured by them, although it is possible that everything was restored later. Uralmash Confederation occupies 3 stations, although it used to stretch over 5. During the First War, their capital, Dynamo, was destroyed by a nuclear bomb, and Prospect Kosmonavtov was given to the King of Dreams. In 2033, their situation is dire. Mashinostroitle and Uralmash are defending themselves from mutants, and children are sick on Uralskaya. Stations. Uktuskiye Gori Station. The station was not finished, and mutants entered the metro through it. Bajovskaya Station. A practically unfinished station, which can only be distinguished from a tunnel by its large size. It is a terrible mental anomaly, which is almost impossible to pass. Geologicheskaya Station. Dead since the apocalypse, abbreviated as GEO. Ploshchad, 1905, Goda Station. Arrogant, the station started a war with Dynamo. The opponents brought an infection to the square and infected people. After saving the children of both stations, the First War of 2017 was over. But the former ally of the square, the bunker, did not want everything to end like that and dropped a bomb on both stations. Dynamo Station. Until 2017, it took over half of the Uralmash line, becoming the capital of a new state, the Uralmash Confederation. It entered the war against 1905 Square. At some point, an epidemic began there, later brought by its scouts to the enemy camp. After saving the children of both stations, the First War of 2017 was over. But the former ally of the square, the bunker, did not want everything to end like that and dropped a bomb on both stations. Prospect Kosmonavtov Station. In the fight against the King of Dreams and mutants, this station fell and was occupied by such a terrible winner. Baku Commissars Station. Most likely like the Uktus Mountains, Baku Commissars was also unfinished. No one lived there. Gradually, the station was captured by all sorts of non-humans, who gradually felt cramped there and went to expand their habitat to the south along the branch. First, to the cosmonauts. The mutants have not been able to advance further yet. Bomb shelters. Bomb shelter Volgogradskaya. In the novel, it is stubbornly called a station, although this is not so. Something terrible happened there, and the bunker had to be sealed, and a sign of the highest uncertain threat was put on it. A cross with 3 crossbars. Bomb shelter Posadskaya. Little is known about the bunker. It is known for sure that it is inhabited, but what kind of life is organized is not exactly stated. Bunker. Families of the military elite, with, roughly speaking, servants, were evacuated here, a former ally of the 1905 Square, which destroyed both it and Dynamo. Most likely it was also later destroyed. Novosibirsk. Metro. Stations. Siberian Union, the largest society in the metro, consists of 4 stations, although in reality of 3, since Berezovaya Roshcha was accepted as the guard of Marshal Pokrishkin, which is the 3rd most important station after Sibirskia and Krasny Prospect. Sibirskia is the capital of the Union. Krasny Prospect is a station that produces electricity and sells it to others. However, two stations, Berezovaya Roshcha and Marshal Pokryshkina, were destroyed by the Black Web, but the head of Krasny Prospect came up with a plan to populate these two human fortresses. The following stations were renamed Krasny Prospect, Marshal Pokryshkina, Marshalskaya, Berezovaya Roshcha, Roshcha. Lenin Square Station. Lenin Square is a station where organized crime flourishes. It is engaged in the production of drugs from glowing mushrooms growing in the tunnels around the station. A bunker has been built on the platform, where the leader named Bugor lives. Previously, bandits from it raided Krasny Prospect, for which it was decided to collapse one tunnel, which was subsequently done. The bandits, fearing the blocking of the second tunnel, stopped the raids. The station lobby is covered by an electrical anomaly called Tesla, in honor of the scientist, physicist Nikola Tesla. Because of this anomaly, the station's hermetic gates are not completely closed. It was destroyed by a black web. It was renamed simply Ploshchad, Oktyabrskaya Station. Oktyabrskaya is an independent station, which was previously prosperous, but such entertainment as dice games appeared on it. There are also bandits on it, mostly perverts and robbers. Rechnoi Vokzal Station. Rechnoi Vokzal is an above-ground and underground covered station located near the Ob River. It housed a temporary stalker camp. Then the station was infected with the RA-12 virus. In the story, Beyond the Threshold of Paradise by Sergei Moskvin, the station is also called Rechnik, Garin Mikhailovsky Square Station. Nothing is known about it, except for the fact that it is inhabited, and that for brevity, it was renamed Gari, Zolotaya Niva Station. All that remains of the station is a funnel, which is why hordes of mutants penetrate the tunnels behind the grove and prevent its inhabitants from living in peace. Rostov Metro. Stations. Aeroport Station. Previously a residential station. However, through the collapsing technological path to the depot, the toad-headed got to the station. The chief abandoned his station and fled into a double-track tunnel connecting the airport with Ordzhonikidze, where a trolley was standing, carrying barrels of explosives, but did not have time to get there. Deprived of their last salvation, people lost self-control in panic and were killed by mutants. Only Ilya Koldenov, nicknamed the Sorcerer, survived. Since then, the station can be considered abandoned. It's enough for Ilya to go beyond its borders, and that's it. No one is there. Pozyolok Ordzhonikidze Station, a residential station known throughout the metro for its free morals, noisy dens, and people quick to punish. In everyday life, it is called Ordzhonikidze, or Ordzhonikidzevskaya, Selmash Station, an industrial station, technologically equipped and famous for its supply of rail cars. It houses a manufacturing plant. Teaternaya Station. True connoisseurs of beauty have gathered here, more precisely, theatrical productions. Theater-goers do not suffer, living off daily performances. Elite stations. Voroshilovskaya and Budyanovskaya are two elite stations where government officials, apparently not the most prominent ones, otherwise they would have taken over the entire metro, have found refuge and organized a neat semi-state with strict rules. Vokzalnaya Station, a ground station where life is impossible due to the high radiation level. Students, semi-intelligent mutants, run around its area. Pushkinskaya to Orbitalnaya stations. Zhukoedi, poor, overcrowded stations where an alternative food source has appeared. Insects. Residents of the Blue Line hate the Reds because they have more organized, deeper, more processed stations, and they show it in every way. From the text of Moranchi, we know about the names of only 5 stations: Pushkinskaya, TSGB, Ploshchad Lenina, Rostvertel, and Orbitalnaya. Societies, trading diaspora. Here, At the Sholokov and Karl Marx Avenue stations, there are trading rows of Armenians who have descended into the metro and organized their own society. They live prosperously and quite peacefully. It is in demand in virtually the entire metro, even among residents of the second line. Don Cossacks. The 3 furthest stations are occupied by squads of Don Cossacks. Thanks to desperate scouts, they maintain contact with the rest of the metro, not only with their own line, but also with the second, it should be noted, Samara Metro, territories and stations. City, located on the stations of the first line, from Moskovskaya to Teatralnaya, as well as on the constructed part of the second line, from Vokzalnaya to Moskovskaya. There is a tunnel between the lines connecting Teatralnaya and the Vokzalnaya Klinicheskaya section. Rich stations, managed from a former Stalinist bunker, where the Central Department, CD, is located. They have everything except water, which they buy from Bezimyanka, a less organized part of the Samara Metro, subject to the adepts of the cult of space and mutations. They tried to leave Samara, but ran into a mysterious line of defense, popularly called the Frontier. It is located entirely on the stations of the first line, from Gagarinskaya to Kirovskaya. Pobeda Station. Pobeda is an uninhabited station where a fire breaks out every morning, returning it to a well-kept state, as before the nuclear war. Murmansk region. Sami site. A small settlement of the Sami, one of the northern peoples. They believe that they are the last survivors on this land, in the middle world. They believe in spirits. The site is led by a council of elders, and the Noid Siladan. It is located between Lovozero and Seidozero. It is located near massive deposits of a mineral that suppresses the effects of radiation. Lovozero village, abandoned, but not destroyed. They did not target it. Part of the population went to the Sami seat, Olenegorsk city, former prisoners. Pobeda is an uninhabited station where a fire breaks out every morning, returning it to a well-kept state, as before the nuclear war. Murmansk city. Murmansk was completely destroyed. In place of the city, there is a funnel flooded with water. Kola city. The city is destroyed to the ground. No ruins, no roads. In a word, nothing. Village Vidyaevo. Abandoned. Until January 2033, a girl named Nadia lived there. Her father used to live there, but, alas, he died. Subject to mutant attacks. City Monchegorsk, Yula. During the war, a regular bomb was dropped on the city, and not just anywhere, but on a factory, which caused a chlorine release. The population died. Years later, when the Polar Zori began to call people and drive out the thugs, a bandit group called Yula was formed in Monchegorsk, previously led by 3 female warriors, Yulia, Lyudmila, and Anna.